Released for the Nintendo Switch in October of 2023, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was directed by Shiro Mori, lead programmer of New Super Mario Bros. U, and produced by Takashi Tezuka, co-designer of the original Super Mario Bros. One of Wonder's lead designers, Shigefumi Hino, was also the director of the first three Pikmin titles and an integral part of both Super Mario Maker games. Development on Wonder began shortly after the release of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe in 2019, and the team was given no deadline for the next project's prototyping, allowing more time for experimentation. In an interview with IGN, director Shiro Mori explained some of the backstory behind Wonder's creation, drawing back to the sense of mystery and secrecy held in the Super Mario Bros. Video games from the very beginning, with hidden blocks, warp zones, and other sneaky bonuses being hidden throughout virtually every Mario platformer since 1985. The developers noted that the use of pipes and vines often transported the player to other screens and locations, rather than making the level more interesting and memorable itself. So the concept of the Wonder Flower was introduced as a means of changing the player's immediate area in unexpected ways. After deciding to apply these secrets to every major stage, the entirety of the team was welcome to contribute ideas of what wondrous events would take place in each level, totaling somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 different ideas, which were then tested and adjusted to work for people playing on their own and together. To the surprise of very few, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was a smash success upon release, selling 4.3 million units in its first 2 weeks, and just barely missing the 12 million mark by the end of 2023, 2 months after release, making it the fastest-selling Super Mario game ever and 18th best-selling Switch game as of writing this video, only 4 million units behind its predecessor, which has been on the Switch for a total of 5 years already. Only time will tell how this fresh new entry will be ranked by fans across the entire Mario franchise, but for the time being, maybe this video will help you understand what's so great about Super Mario Bros. Wonder. As the adventure commences, we immediately find ourselves in the newly introduced neighboring Flower Kingdom, with the border of the Mushroom Kingdom fading into the background as we meet this game's guide, Prince Florian, who has invited Mario and friends to visit his kingdom. Bowser interrupts the welcoming ceremony by grabbing a powerful, reality-warping Wonder Flower and merging with the Flower Kingdom's castle, turning himself into a giant mechanical warship. In this entry particularly, Bowser's goal is now world domination, rather than just kidnapping Princess Peach, reintroducing him as a proper villain with a dreadful new scheme. Lately, I've been enjoying how Bowser has become a much more showy and extravagant villain over the last few iterations, notably in Super Mario 3D World, Super Mario Odyssey, and now Wonder as well, with high-tech amusement parks, gargantuan palaces, and heavy metal soundtracks to give him plenty more personality outside of Big Turtle. The usual antagonistic team of Koopalings isn't present in this entry. Instead, Bowser's closest allies, Kamek and Bowser Jr., will do their best to impede Mario and friends as players collect royal seeds from palaces at the end of each section of the Flower Kingdom in order to chip away at Castle Bowser's defenses and thwart his plans. This entry has the largest roster of playable characters in a Mario platformer to date, with the new addition of Daisy, as well as 4 colors of Yoshi as their own playable characters, instead of the usual position of a sidekick to aid Mario and Luigi along the way. Nabbit has returned from New Super Mario Bros. U, and alongside the 4 Yoshi, serves as an easy mode by not taking damage, though also not being able to transform upon collecting power-ups. After providing the voice of Mario alongside many other characters in the franchise for nearly 3 decades, Charles Martinet has officially retired from his vocal role to focus on being a brand ambassador for Nintendo and Mario. Filling this colossal position is a much younger and greener voice actor named Kevin Afghani, whose only prior video game credit was a minor cameo-sized role in Genshin Impact. All that to say, the new voices are really solid. They still sound exactly as you'd expect when thinking of Mario and Luigi, though you can also, fairly enough, tell it's a different voice actor from time to time, especially when new vocal phrases are thrown out there. In general, all of the characters have somewhat younger and higher sounding voices than they have in previous games, which pairs well with the slightly shorter and more cartoonish character designs. The faces of our main characters are more dynamically animated than ever before. Mario has his usual face of determination as he charges through this new adventure, but he also looks like he's having fun and being stricken by just as much wonder as the player whenever something wacky and unpredictable occurs, which helps bring us as audience members along for the ride as we relate to Mario's situations and have just as much fun as he does. Basic enemies such as the Goomba and Koopa are also more emotionally animated, and they'll pay attention to the player more than ever before, becoming aggravated as Mario gets too close, celebrating when they deal damage to him, and so on. Eventually, you get so accustomed to the art style of this game overall that Mario and the others don't look any different than before, even with their slight redesigns to fit the rest of this world. The overworld map seems to begin in a linear fashion, though after the first few introductory stages, the player reaches the mainland, where the stages are no longer linear, but instead laid out like most Super Mario Bros. Platformers since the third entry, with branching paths and free movement of the player to choose their next stage. The map of the Flower Kingdom feels like it takes inspiration from Paper Mario or the Mario & Luigi RPG series by stitching together these colorful worlds in a way that shows just enough to pique the player's curiosity as to what's in store for them, while hiding the majority of this kingdom's secrets until players reach every section of the map. I enjoy the fact that upon looking at the map of the world, even before the majority of this game's sectors have been introduced or identified, that I don't know exactly what sort of environments I'll be seeing along the way. While the Mario series itself cemented the general format for themed platforming worlds, the usual existence of a desert, ice world, and so on has become a pretty tired trope in the world of gaming. And while features of some of these biomes can be seen in the map of the Flower Kingdom, everything that awaits the player seems much more fantastical, in a style that breathes new life into the Super Mario Bros. Experience. In order to open more parts of the kingdom throughout their adventure, the player will need to clear away Bowser's evil piranha plants by collecting Wonder Seeds at the end of stages and difficult gameplay segments, which is where those powerful Wonder Flowers come into play. Collecting a stage's Wonder Flower will send the player into a chaotically lively and charming alternate reality of the Flower Kingdom, where anything could happen. With this new mechanic, the developers at Nintendo wasted no time in generating a sense of wonder for their players, with the chance to transform into an elephant among pipes that crawl like caterpillars in the very first level, and the second stage featuring a parade of singing piranha plants. I love the sensation of never knowing what the Wonder Flower will change about that particular stage, because it's always some crazy new thing that feels like a bunch of the ideas for new concepts that Nintendo goes through whenever they're making new Mario games. As mentioned a moment ago, following the long line of animal transformations from Tanukis in 1988 and cats in 2013 is the new elephant form. After picking up the elephant fruit, players will grow larger and be able to swat enemies away with their trunk or smash through destructible objects. Elephant Mario can also hold water in his trunk and spray it on enemies or objects whenever the player pleases. Spraying it on the ground will cause flowers to grow and coins to shoot out, and some withered plants will also need to be watered in order to provide the player with a reward. Alongside the ever-present fire flower is now, instead of ice, a bubble flower that allows the player to not only capture enemies inside to more easily defeat, but also create single-use platforms to clear gaps and reach higher areas. There's also a new drill mushroom, which allows players to burrow into the floor and ceiling of a stage, depending on what they're composed of, as well as drill through enemies and blocks with greater ease than your typical jump and ground pound. Prince Florian of the Flower Kingdom, who's along for this journey on the player's back, can equip a variety of badges that change the mechanics within the player's arsenal. The first badge to be introduced is the Parachute Cap, which allows the player to float after jumps like the Raccoon Tail in Super Mario Bros. 3 and the Cape Feather in Super Mario World. Another early badge gives the player the benefits of a Super Mushroom upon the start of each level. Many classic Mario moves make their first reappearance in this entry as a nice treat for longtime fans as well. Several of Wonder's badges seem to take the place of many of the Super Mario franchise's power-ups that we've seen throughout the years, without having to cram every legacy ability into the game. For instance, the Dolphin Kick badge fills the role of the briefly appearing frog suit from Super Mario Bros. 3 way back on the NES, and I believe this is the first time that the charging crouch jump from the US version of Super Mario Bros. 2 has returned for another Mario game as well. However, with the use of badges, these abilities that are only really useful for a level or two at a time can be activated whenever necessary, without A, requiring a new visual form for the combination of every character and every ability, and B, taking away these very useful powers upon taking damage, as the benefits of the Super Mushroom and Fire Flower are now totally independent of the badge abilities. Players can change their equipped badge on the fly at the start of each level for easily customized gameplay whenever they're retrying a stage they previously had difficulty with, or possibly trying to reach other collectibles that they missed out on their first time through. From the courses menu, players can easily select any previously completed or even attempted stage in order to travel quickly to it whenever they feel they're ready for another run. It's also easy to tell which collectibles are yet to be found, and even what unique features each stage possesses to easily remind players what the level has in store should they want to use a badge that specifically suits the hazards and puzzles. All of the short break time and badge challenge stages provide a good way for new players to learn their way around every maneuver and ability in this game's repertoire, outside of the challenges of the more stressful full-length stages. The depth used for both the foreground and background are well scaled in order to provide the sensation of a world that sprawls out before the player, even if they're locked into a single perspective. This pleasantly disrupts the divide between the game's playable area and the background and other set dressings to feel like one interconnected land, something not usually seen in 2D platformers until very recently, and rarely still done this well. The background artists pulled off what I think is a really clever homage to Mario's earliest days back on the NES, when clouds and bushes literally used the same sprites, by designing worlds where the clouds often matched the hills and other topography closer to the player's perspective. For example, in the Petal Isles, both the nearby cliffs and the fluffy, distant clouds give the impression of tidal waves, heavily personifying the environment we find ourselves in as drastically as would have been necessary when hardware memory limitations demanded simple designs and clever loopholes. The same technique can be seen in the wispy summits of Fluff Puff Peaks and the reversed pipes in certain underground areas. Alongside Koji Kondo, the soundtrack of Wonder also featured the contributions of Sayako Doi, who worked on Splatoon 3 and Metroid Dread, as well as Shio Fuji, who composed and arranged many of the pieces in Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8, and The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. As with every iteration of two-dimensional Mario Bros. Games since the very beginning, this entry also has its own variations of the classic overworld, underworld, underwater, and other various themes, which all sound fun and new, though somehow also feel just as you remember them from previous Mario adventures as well. Musical pieces from Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario 64, and Super Mario Sunshine all make new appearances, often in specific bonus stages or Wonder Flower segments. The opening melody from the very first Mario Bros. Arcade game even reappears at the start of the KO Arena challenge stages. An outrageous amount of the Wonder Flowers feature their own musical pieces as well, often even integrated around the pace of the level, as demonstrated in the early Piranha Plants on Parade segment. These pieces expand the soundtrack beyond anything witnessed in a Super Mario Bros. Platformer, as players are transported to as many wondrous places as Mario and Luigi themselves. Personally, this is the most fun I've had with a two-dimensional platformer game since Little Big Planet 2 in 2011, which was also one of the only other platformers I can think of that has experimented with stretching the boundaries of the 2D platformer genre to such a degree, having one of the most elaborate custom level building engines that I've seen in a video game to this day. During the crazy segments of gameplay summoned by the Wonder Flower, the Mario franchise also breaks many of the expectations of what gameplay is like in a platformer, with top-down control from a new perspective or environmental chase sequences that feel like they're pulled from the more recent platformers such as Ori and the Will of the Wisps or Celeste. In fact, some of the levels in Wonder's World 4 are very explicitly inspired by a notable segment from Celeste, both mechanically and visually. You can also occasionally feel some inspiration from Mario's own 3D adventures, with puzzles that would have felt right at home in Super Mario Odyssey or the Galaxy games back on the Wii. Thanks to all of this internal and external inspiration, the gameplay of Mario Bros. Wonder is continuously diverse without diverging into anything that would feel un-Mario-like. I'm excited to see more from this version of Mario, in sight, sound, and gameplay, especially in whatever upcoming sports and role-playing games Nintendo may have in the pipeline, as we seem to be entering a new era for their flagship franchise as we near the announcement of the Switch's successor. Super Mario Bros. Wonder feels like both a great culmination of everything that Mario has been so far, as well as a breath of new life that promises even greater adventures in the future. That is what's so great about Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Thank you all for joining us on this episode of What's So Great About Gaming, as we were whisked away into the world of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. If you want to support the channel, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and do whatever else the algorithm demands of us to keep up with our favorite content. Also, consider joining our gaming community on Discord, or watching bonus videos on Patreon. If you want to hear what's great about another game, check out the link to our last episode, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, on screen or in the description. And let us know your thoughts on Super Mario Bros. Wonder and what games you'd like to see in the future. Thanks again for watching. Now go play a great game. We'll see you next time.